The viewer wanted to know, have you got a feel for what the commissioning period is? Once you commit, how long do you think it would take you to get to full production? And he also asked whether you thought the sulfide part of the project could be funded out of cash flow. And I assume by sulfide, he means sort of the big picture sulfide, not the high grade that you're kind of adding on as a second circuit.
Yeah, great question. Thanks. Look, the commissioning period, we've gone into this in detail with Lycopodium, pre and post award of the EPCM. They expect it to be up to full tonnage within a month, and they see no reason why that would not be based on the fact that it's oxides. The sulfides, absolutely, we've allowed space to go to 4.2, but we've structured the debt, and I can't really talk too much about it, that will give us a huge amount of flexibility to expand that here. And so we will look at it. Obviously, we did the sulfide reserves at $1,200 gold. It's a different beast now. We probably have some drilling to do before that, so we would likely have to do some work, probably 8 to 10 million of drilling to really firm certain stuff up to allow that expansion to occur. So, provided that things are running well and we get off to a good start, that's what we expect to do.
Is anybody mining that kind of material in West Africa, like straight up sulfides?
Absolutely, yeah. So if I said if you look at Wahgnion, which has just been built by Teranga, obviously is going to be Endeavour now. Their reserve grade is 1.2, and so is ours. And obviously the high grade, the first couple of years because of P17, we're running around about 1.7 to the mill. Their strip ratio is almost 7 to 1. Our strip ratio is 2 to 1. So big difference there. They're funding all of their capex out of their sulfides. Our project's built and running with the oxide. So besides the operating account, there's you don't have that huge capex on it. So there's a lot of advantages to what we're doing here, and that really sort of shows the build out that we want to do. Do we want to build it bigger? Yes, of course we do. We are Orezone. We are a single asset company. Obviously, if we're successful, that will happen.
Okay. The next question is for Sharon. It's a fairly simple question. I just wanted to know how deep hole 12 was. And I guess that's sort of relative to all the historical stuff. And the new, just a confirmation that hole 12, it's wide open in every direction, but the high grade mineralization in hole 12 is a bit different from the historic Buck mineralization. Like it's something new in that sense, not just in the grade, but it also looks different.
Yeah, for sure. So hole 12 was just over 400 meters. So we have some pretty long holes at Buck. Hole 12 is one of them. The mineralization at surface and down towards depth, it looks a bit different, especially at depth. It's a more subtle geology, very subtle mineralization. And so we were surprised when we actually assayed those really great grades. Our geologists are going to spend some time re-looking at some of those core and go through the logs, take photographs, and really try to understand how this new style of mineralization is tied into the whole model.
Okay. I've got a question next for Steve. One of the viewers asked, and I guess this is based on an earlier news release. He said, I thought there were 20 holes, but you mentioned that you guys drilled 25. Was there a different breccia that was targeted with those extra holes, or did you just do an extra one here and there as you move through the program?
No, I think in our news release we talked about the 25 holes, 19 RC and six.
Right. Okay.
And so maybe there's where the mix-up, but we were adapting to what we were seeing in the rocks and repositioning a few of the holes along the way. But we essentially, October 15th to December 15th, we're drilling the whole time.
Right.
So,
okay.
Nothing particular about that.
Okay. Next question's for Tim. Nice to hear that you started drilling a couple of days ago. That's a bit of a surprise. Good on you. I guess you guys waded through the snow in Spain. Have you got any kind of an update, any kind of a better sense of where things are at with your bureaucracy when it comes to the Elementalist? Do you think you're close in terms of getting that finalized so that you can kind of get to work on that ground?
Yeah, we are making progress. We made some small modifications to the property following the last discussions with the authorities late last year. Those changes were accepted. They're only just back at work. I think the government offices started again on the 7th of January. So we'll be back in their offices probably next week, trying to push that along. So I expect it will be granted this quarter. Sooner the better. There'll be a process. Firstly, it'll need to be published, and then there's a mandatory 6-week period after that, and then it's just a question of getting the formal approval of the license.
Okay, and once you've got it, what would you be doing? I mean, obviously you're just going to keep drilling at La Romana, but what would you start off with once you've got that ground available to you?
Yeah, so good question. Yeah, so we'd like to keep going at La Romana, and when we get the other area granted, I'd like to do an airborne survey in parallel to perhaps some ground follow-up where that old Exxon drill hole was, which is obviously there's 9 meters at 1.5% copper there to start. But the airborne survey takes 3 days, detailed program that would help us prioritise which of those other targets, big gravity anomalies, we should focus on next. So I could see if we get it granted this quarter, that we could be drilling by the middle of the year, and have perhaps a couple of rigs turning on that property whilst continuing to grow La Romana.
Nice. Okay. Cameron, one thing I'm curious about, the tailings project. I mean, most of your capex is there. Obviously, it was part and parcel of the purchase you're doing. I don't think that you guys are envisaging a huge amount of added capex to get it up and running. There might be some modifications. I just wondered, is it necessary to do, a PEA, PFS? I mean, is that sort of mainly for the market, or would that actually be like a financing document? I mean, how are you guys envisaging that?
It's mostly to ensure that we get the metallurgy right. People like looking at tailings and saying that, the drilling and blasting has been paid for, the hauling out of the pit has been paid for, the crushing and grinding has been paid for. But the tailings kind of bring their own set of unique challenges, particularly because that low-hanging fruit has already been removed from the material. And so it's really essential for the success of these sorts of tailings reprocessing projects, a couple of which I've actually been a part of previously, is to get the metallurgy right. And I think that's the problem that the previous operators had, is that they didn't invest sort of the time and money in studying the tailings and ensuring that their flow sheet is going to attain the sort of levels of gold recovery that they're looking for. And so the levels of gold recovery we're looking for are sort of in that 70 to 75% range. Based on some more recent test work, we're pretty confident we can get there. But prior to commissioning the plant, the reason why we're doing this PEA with Ausenco is mostly just to make sure that we get the design of that flow sheet right, so we know exactly what sort of modifications are going to be required to kind of limit the risk on commissioning and the risks associated with recovering gold from the tailings. So we do expect there to be a little bit of additional capital in terms of plant modifications, probably in the range of just a few $1 million. But we won't know exactly what that looks like until a little later in the year once we have some more information.
Okay, but your expectation is, based on some early met work, you don't think you're going to have to get too exotic when it comes to generating recoveries from this material?
That's right. I mean, the plant they already began the modification process to convert it from a carbon and leach to a Merrill-Crowe, but they were still struggling a little bit. I don't think they had the working capital necessary to really get it underway. But we don't expect anything too exotic. We might not even have to do any regrinding. We might be able to just use the material as is. But I would still expect maybe in the ballpark of a couple $1 million.
Okay. Brandon, does Boundary at a basic level change focus. I mean, obviously you've got this resource with a good PEA on it, Tom and Jason, but on the other hand, it looks like Boundary could be something fairly monstrous, and it's it's more likely to be open pit. I don't know whether the mattering is going to be different, but does Fireweed just kind of refocus and it's all about Boundary for a year or two, or are you going to kind of try to pull them along simultaneously? I mean, a lot of the work's done, obviously, Tom and Jason. But.
Yeah, well, that's been the the $1 million question is where's the center of gravity in the project now, both in terms of exploration focus and in terms of the conceived mine plan, right, for an updated PEA. So I think the original idea before we discovered Boundary West, and we were just thinking this year was going to be about defining the core of Boundary Zone. It was going to be a bolt-on to what was really the real value at Tom and Jason. But with the discovery of Boundary West and the implications that has for the broader area, anything's possible now. And that's, that's the challenge. We've been talking about delivering an updated resource and PEA next year, but there's a chance that we actually are too successful this summer to do that. If there's too much upside left there, I don't know why I would put a pin in it and define something when I'm not done yet, right? So it's a good problem to have, but it is a problem, So it's definitely a period of flux for the company.
Okay, I think that covers it. We were just about out of Q&A period anyway, so I just want to thank all of you for coming and presenting today. Great set of companies. I should know they're all on my list, and I own all of them. So my opinion may be slightly biased, but nonetheless, I think it's a great group of companies. I think you're all going to have a really good year this year, and I think we're all going to have a lot of fun.